The top floor of the towering Moretti International headquarters was unlike any ordinary corporate office. Armed security officers guarded every entrance. Luxury black vehicles filled the underground garage, and executives spoke in whispers whenever the company's mysterious owner was mentioned. To the outside world, Luca Moretti was a billionaire businessman who controlled shipping, hotels, and real estate across Europe. But behind closed doors, everyone knew another truth. He was the feared Mafia boss whose name alone could silence a room. Years earlier, an assassination attempt had left Luca completely blind, though he could no longer see. His extraordinary hearing, memory, and instincts made him even more intimidating than before. No employee dared speak to him casually. Every sentence began with "sir." Every answer was carefully rehearsed, and everyone lived in constant fear of making a mistake. On Monday morning, the company hired a new executive assistant named Emily Carter, a calm and intelligent young woman in her late 20s. Unlike everyone else, Emily had never heard the terrifying stories surrounding Luca. She accepted the position simply because she needed a better job to support her widowed mother. As security escorted her into Luca's enormous office, they whispered, "Never interrupt him, never disagree with him, and never speak unless he asks you a question." Emily quietly nodded but said nothing. When she entered the office, Luca stood beside the floor-to-ceiling windows, listening to the sound of rain against the glass. Without turning around, he said, "You're late." Emily glanced at the clock before calmly replying, "Actually, I'm 3 minutes early." "Your clock is slow." Every security guard in the room froze. No one had ever corrected Luca Moretti before. A long silence followed. Then, instead of becoming angry, Luca slowly smiled for the first time in years. "Interesting," he said quietly. "Everyone else speaks to me because they're afraid. You spoke to me because you were honest." From that moment, the most feared man in the city became curious about the one assistant who treated him not like a legend or a monster, but simply like a man. Emily's honesty quickly became the talk of the entire headquarters. Employees couldn't believe the new assistant had corrected Luca Moretti and still walked out of his office with her job. Over the next several days, she continued treating him with the same calm professionalism. When meetings ran too long, she reminded him he needed to eat. When he skipped his medication, she quietly placed it beside his coffee without making a scene. If executives tried to flatter him with empty compliments, Emily simply handed him the reports and said, "The numbers matter more than the speeches." Instead of being offended, Luca found himself trusting her more than anyone else in the building. One afternoon, several international investors arrived for a major contract negotiation worth hundreds of millions of dollars. As the meeting began, one executive secretly tried to exploit Luca's blindness by quietly swapping an important contract page, hoping he would unknowingly approve hidden clauses that would transfer company assets overseas. Everyone else remained silent, afraid to interrupt the meeting. Emily, standing near the conference table, immediately noticed the switch. Without hesitation, she stepped forward. "Stop," she said firmly. The room fell silent. She picked up the altered document and placed the original contract in front of Luca. Someone changed the agreement after legal approval. Security officers instantly surrounded the executive responsible, who turned pale as the evidence became undeniable. Luca calmly ran his fingers across the embossed company seal on the original document before asking one quiet question. "Emily, are you certain?" She answered without fear. "Yes, I wouldn't accuse someone unless I was sure." For a long moment, the room was completely silent. Then Luca slowly stood. "For years," he said, "people believed my blindness was my greatest weakness. Today, everyone learned that loyalty sees what fear ignores." He ordered security to remove the dishonest executive immediately. As the doors closed behind the man, every employee realized something extraordinary had happened. The assistant everyone considered ordinary had just protected the most powerful man in the city, not because she feared him, but because she respected the truth. News of the failed betrayal spread quietly through Moretti International. For the first time in years, employees realized that Luca Moretti's greatest strength wasn't his wealth or influence. It was his ability to recognize genuine loyalty Emily became his most trusted assistant, but she never treated him differently than anyone else. She still reminded him about appointments, corrected small mistakes when necessary, and refused every expensive gift he offered. "I'm here to do my job," she would say with a smile, "not to be rewarded for telling the truth." One evening, as the headquarters prepared to close, the building's security system suddenly detected an unauthorized intrusion. The emergency lights activated and security teams rushed through the hallways. Intelligence reports revealed that a rival crime organization planned to assassinate Luca inside his own office. His bodyguards immediately surrounded him and prepared an evacuation route through a hidden underground exit. As everyone hurried towards safety, Emily noticed something unusual on the security monitors. The escape tunnel the guards were leading Luca toward had already been compromised. Without thinking twice, she stopped the entire security team. "Don't go that way," she said firmly. "They're waiting for you." Some guards hesitated, believing she was overreacting, but Emily pointed to a maintenance camera showing armed intruders moving toward the tunnel entrance. The room fell silent. Luca turned his head toward Emily. "You just saved my life," he said quietly. She answered calmly, "No, I simply paid attention." Following her advice, security changed the evacuation route and safely escorted Luca through another exit. Minutes later, police arrived and arrested the attackers before anyone inside the building was harmed. Later that night, sitting in his quiet office overlooking the city lights, Luca spoke softly. "Everyone fears me because of my reputation. But you never treated me like a monster or a legend. You simply treated me like a human being." Emily smiled gently and replied, "Because that's what you are." For the first time since losing his sight years earlier, Luca felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Not fear, not power, but genuine trust. The following week, Luca Moretti called every executive, department head, and security officer into the company's grand conference hall. The atmosphere was tense as everyone expected another strict announcement. Instead, Luca walked confidently to the front of the room with Emily beside him. Though he could not see the faces before him, his voice filled the hall with quiet authority. "For years," he began, "people obeyed me because they feared me. They thought loyalty meant saying yes to everything I asked. But fear doesn't build trust, honesty does." He paused before continuing. "The person who has protected me more than anyone else in this building is not my strongest bodyguard or my highest-paid executive. It is the one person who wasn't afraid to tell me the truth." He turned toward Emily and smiled. "She corrected me when I was wrong, stopped people from deceiving me, and even saved my life. She never treated me like a legend or a monster. She treated me like a man." The room erupted into applause as Luca announced that Emily would become his chief of staff, giving her authority over every executive office and security operation. Months later, Moretti International had changed completely. Employees no longer worked in fear. Departments communicated openly, corruption disappeared, and the company became stronger than ever because people were encouraged to speak honestly instead of hiding mistakes. Emily remained humble, walking through the headquarters, greeting everyone, from receptionists to security guards, with the same kindness she had shown on her first day. One quiet evening, Luca and Emily stood together beside the office windows, overlooking the glowing city skyline. Luca smiled as he listened to the sounds of the city below. "You know," he said softly, "losing my eyesight made me think I'd never truly trust anyone again." Emily replied with a gentle smile. "Sometimes we don't need eyes to recognize good people. We only need an honest heart." Luca nodded. "And because of that, you didn't just change my company, you changed my life." As the lights of the city shimmered in the distance, the most feared man in the city realized that true strength had never come from fear or power. It came from surrounding himself with people brave enough to speak the truth.